over the past week, we have seen weakness in the US market, and STI have sold off as well. The US markets have sold off by more than 3 to 5% over the past 2 weeks. Even the Singapore market was not spared as well. So how are the Singapore banks doing right now? Are we seeing weakness? Could there be an opportunity to get in on the dips, all right, on a discount? And we are talking about the Singapore banks, DBS, UOB, and even OCBC. Where should we think about positioning ourselves again? Are there any bullish or even bearish signals that have came out on my one good trend? Make sure you watch this video all the way to the end, and that's where I'll cover the analysis in terms of the three banks, DBS, OCBC, and UOB. Let's go. So the first bank right here is called DBS, right? Trading at about 45.78. So before I talk about where we were, you can see that over the past like 1 over year, we have been in a pretty good long-term uptrend, right? What I mean by long-term uptrend, well, essentially we have been forming what we call higher lows since like August last year. So the lows actually became higher and higher. So that's a good thing. It means that the trend is up in the longer term. We want to think about buying stocks like this, right? So the banks are actually in a pretty good long-term uptrend just by looking at the lows becoming higher. And if you take a look at the longer term moving averages, like the red line, and that would be the 100 days simple moving average. The blue line would be the 200 days simple moving average. You can see that both of them are pointing up. The red line is above the blue line. So the longer term trend is up, right? One of the stocks that you want to put in your watch list. In fact, I think there could even be more upside. But let's take a look at the short-term trend of DBS. You can see that the longer-term trend can be up, right, since 1-2 years back, but it doesn't mean that the short-term trend is always up, right? It could be down as well. Look at this, right? That was in like July, August. We look at the 20 days moving average line. You can see when the green line starts to point down, we started to see a bit of weakness, and that is where the short-term trend has turned down. Of course, when the short-term trend started to turn back up, look at this, right? The rally actually began, right? Same thing over here. We saw weakness in the short-term trend turn down a little bit. It turns back up, and the rally actually happened. So we want to wait for the longer-term trend and also the short-term trend to be up, and that's where there's a higher probability to be right. All right. So right now, let me go to see what is happening. So right now, DBS is at about 45.79. And if I can draw what we call like the horizontal support level, you see that over the past like 2-3 weeks, we started to find a little bit of a support right here, maybe around the $45.40 or $45.50, somewhere over here. It seems like that is kind of like the support right now. In fact, today, right, we actually went below and we got quite a bullish candle coming out, something like what we call a bullish Marubozu pattern coming out. All right, went down, buyers came up, push it back up, and we are still above the $45.50. So quite a good support, I would say. If you can hold above the $45.50, not too bad. Of course, if the $45.50 were to break down, then perhaps the next support will be the critical $45, right? So that is for DBS right now. In terms of the longer term trend, is up. The short term trend, if you can take a look at the green 20 days moving average, now you can see that it is still slightly pointing up. So still okay, all right? We're still above the 45.50. Now it's 45.80. I think that's where some bargain hunting is actually coming back. So let's take a look at what it says on my 1GT Pro indicator. So essentially, right, I have this strategy called the one good trend, right? And based on this strategy, it allows us to ride stocks with massive trends, right, to get in when the trend is up, both in the longer term and short term. And it comes up with what we call bullish and even bearish signals to guide us when to get in and when to get out, right? So it gives us an opinion on any stocks in seconds. Let me just go to turn it on right now. You can see this is the 1GT Pro indicator. Let's turn on the signals. Look at this right here. Pam. There we go. We have just turned on the signals for DBS. So you can see, right? I mean, we had a couple of bullish signals. Now, remember, right? In this line right over here, when I draw, the short-term trend was slightly pointing down. We got bullish signals coming out in February last year. Green 20 days moving average line started to point up as well as another confirmation. Look at it, there we go, another bullish signal, all the way up. We got two bearish signals. The green line started to point down, not so good. You want to be careful, you want to get out. We started to head down. So let's just zoom into what is happening right now. I think we got some bullish signals in October, November, a couple of months back, started to see it rising all the way up. And let's zoom in. I would say right now we actually got a bullish signal coming out somewhere on the February, right? So February we got a bullish signal. There are still no bearish signal right now. So what I can do is that I could turn on what we call the trailing support line right over here. Let me just turn it on, and you can see that there is this green trailing support line that pops up. So look at this, right? So this was a signal in October. We got a bullish signal coming out, trailing support pops up, and it kind of follows DBS as it moves up. So this trailing support, as the name sounds, right? It follows the stock as it moves higher. It gives it the breathing space, right, that it needs to hopefully move higher, and it follows it higher. But one fine day, right, when you give it the space but yet it were to break below it like what we saw over here, not so good. It means that there could be some selling pressure. We might see a short-term retracement, or maybe just a sideways movement, and that's exactly what it did, right? We got a bearish signal, it went below the trailing support. You can see, move sideways a little bit. The green 20 days moving average line started to flatten out. But all this while, you can see that the red and the blue line, right? I mean, it has been up. The longer term trend has been up. As I say, that's pretty easy to see, right? So whereas in the short term, yeah, sometimes it could be sideways, a bit of weakness in the short term, right? But overall, the longer term trend has been up. So we got a new bullish signal coming up right here. You can see the trailing support actually pops up, right? Right now, you can see that prices for DBS at about 45.84. So remember, just now when I drew the support, it was at about that $45.50 right over here, whereby I know mentioned buyers are starting to come back up to push prices above the 45.50. So that was kind of like the horizontal support. So if you look at the trailing support, it's right over here, somewhere around the $44.60, somewhere over here, 65 cents. I think that is a trailing support, and it's a little bit lower, right? Why? Because as I said, right, the trailing support give the stock space to actually move up, all right? You give it breathing space. You don't want to be too near, all right? As long as you stay above it, it's fine. The trailing support actually accounts for what we call the volatility of the stock. So if the stock is very volatile, we give it more space. But if it's not volatile, it doesn't really move up or down a lot, then we don't have to give it much space anyway, right? And then the trailing support will be slightly nearer. But in this case, we are still seeing some space, and DBS is still above the trailing support line. So it's still okay. I would say it's still okay. This bullish signal is still in play. I think if we can hold above that $45.50, let's see, right? Maybe we might have a resistance right over here. I think quite clearly that would be around that $47. Just 2 weeks back, you see, right? Some bearish candles came out, a couple of candles whereby long upper shadow, that means sellers actually came out and pushed prices back down. It just means that anywhere near that $47, it could be $46.80, it could be $46.90. That's where some selling pressure is coming back. All right, so this is DBS. I hope you have a better idea of where we are right now. I think it still looks okay. Anything above that $45.50 or even $45, there could be some bargain hunting potentially coming back, like what we are seeing right now. All right, let's move on to the second Singapore bank, and that would be OCBC, one of the very popular banks as well. All right, and guys, if you want to find out a little bit more on the entire one good trend strategy and how perhaps you could have an indicator like this to guide you on when to get in, when to get out, all right, and how do we actually filter out the top 1% of stocks, right, before knowing what to do with them, whether to buy or to sell them, right? Attend one of those free webinars. The link is right below the video, and as well, I'll share with you guys how to profit consistently in the stock market. Link is below the video, right? So let me just dive right into OCBC right now. So you can see, right, I've turned on what we call the bullish and bearish signals for OCBC. You can see right over here. Let me just turn it off. Let me just turn it on. Pam, there we go, right? In a matter of seconds, for any asset classes, any stocks, any banks, US stocks, Singapore stocks, the banks, anything, right? Basically, you get an opinion in seconds. All right, so you can see this is OCBC. Well, not too bad, right? So I think longer term trend is up. Look at the rates and the blue line. I mean, they're both pointing up, right? The longer term trend has been up since like 2 years back, right? That's pretty easy to see just by looking at the rate and the blue line, right? The short term trend, as I mentioned, right, we could actually see weakness in the short term, right? That was like in July. We got a bearish signal. The green line turned down. The green line started to flatten out down a little bit, all right? So that was where we saw a bit of weakness in the short term, but overall, we got new bullish signals coming out, and then the green line turned back up. There we go. All right, a bit of weakness here, bullish signals coming out. The green line started to turn up. 20 days moving average that represents the short-term trend started to turn up, and there we go, all the way up. Let's take a look at what is happening right now. So OCBC is currently trading at about 17.22. So I would say right now we would have a little bit of a support right over here. If I can draw this support line, a horizontal support line, maybe around the $17 would be a psychological support level. Why do I say so? Well, you can see, right, it was originally the resistance level. You can see we tested, came back down, all right, rebounded up, and finally we broke the $17. Came back down, respected it a little bit, went below it for a while, but we managed to push back above the $17. So the resistance level have turned into what we call a psychological support level. And over the past 1-2 weeks, we did see a bit of a selling, right, from like near 18 all the way down. So over the past 1 week, we're still trying to hold above the $17 psychological support level. And if you look at the green line, the 20 days moving average, right, it was like up from November, December, January, up. Well, right now, if you ask me, is the green line still pointing up? Well, not really, right? The green 20 days moving average line was up, and you can see now it has started to flatten out. Well, would that be bad or good? Well, it just means that we are seeing a bit of a consolidation, a bit of a sideways movement, and that's the reason why I drew what we call the $17 as a horizontal support level, whereby we are trying to hold above or trying to consolidate above. Does it make sense? All right. What about the resistance level? Now I can draw this resistance, I would say somewhere around the $18. Look at this, right? Just about 2 weeks back, we were right over here. We got what we call like a spinning top, a bit of a reversal. So I think the range is like $17 to $18 for OCBC. It's like a $1 range, all right? And we are pretty much just moving sideways in this range. The green 20 days moving average lines, I say, is sideways, so it's fine, right? It just means that's a bit of a short-term consolidation, sideways movement, while the longer-term trend is up. It gives you an opportunity to time your entry to get in potentially near $17 as well, especially if you do spot some bullish candles coming out there, right? So now let me go to turn on what we call the trailing support line, right? Very quickly, there we go. Very good. You can see that when this first bullish signal came out in November, right, we got the trailing support actually coming out. Look at this, up, flat, up. So it follows OCBC, and it went up from November, December, January, right? And right now we can see that, well, it's pretty near the trailing support. We are still trying to hold above it, right? We're still trying to hold above it. So I think if we can hold above that 17, 20, or maybe even $17, that could be a good thing, all right? Best if we can hold above this trailing support line. That I would say that that's where we could potentially just move sideways a little bit and maybe see a rebound towards that $18. So yeah, that's a trailing spot. You can see pretty near, but we are still, over the past 1-2 weeks, that we are still attempting to hold above this trailing support. In fact, today, right, we actually went down, a bullish signal came out, we are pushing away from the trailing support, right? They actually give it space to be above it, right? As long as we stay above it, we are looking pretty bullish. So that's a trailing support around the $17.15. If you want to give allowance, then there'll be a $17 psychological support level. All right, so that's OCBC. All right, I hope you have a better idea what we can where we are right now. Anything above that $17 or even above $17.15 or $17.20, I think it still looks pretty okay. All right, let's move on to the third Singapore bank, and that would be UOB. So very quickly, you can see that UOB has been in a longer term uptrend, all right, since about 2 years back as well. All right, look at this, right, red and blue line both pointing up. Couple of bullish signals right over here in November. Look at it, started to push up. Another bullish signal, started to push up a little bit more. So the short term trend, I would say, for UOB has been very gradually pointing up. Look at the green line, it was sideways a little bit. Now it's still slightly sloping up. Can you see, right? Look at the green line, 20 days moving average, slightly sloping up. So if I can go to draw what we call a horizontal support level, well, I would say that would be around the $38. I think that's a very key psychological support level. It was a bit of a resistance. We were trading below it in January, in December, even in February, but we broke above that $38, which is now the horizontal psychological support level. So the price now is 38.28. We're still above the $38, right? So I think it's still quite okay if you can hold above 38. I think that's where some bargain hunting is starting to come back. And you see, right, it also coincides with where the green 20 days moving average line is, right? Let me go to draw what we call a bit of a resistance. I think we might be seeing a bit of a resistance, maybe around that $39 over the past 2-3 weeks. It seems like 39 is where some selling is coming back. We got some bearish candles coming out right over here. So I think the range is $38 to $39. We can stay above 38. I think the uptrend still looks pretty intact, not too bad. And if I can quickly turn on what we call the trailing support line to give you an idea, right over here, look at this, right? So we got the first bullish in one pump, 1, 2. In fact, not one but two bullish signal. Another 1, 3, number 4. All right, started to move up from like 33 all the way to 38 plus right now. So the trailing support line has followed up. All right, follow it, going up, flat, up, flat, up, flat. You can see, right, this trailing support is around that $37. Why is it slightly lower? Well, because you can see that UOB has been moving up in a very gradual pace. It has space, right? Look at the space. As it goes up, there's more space as well. So This trailing support, as I say, give it space for it to move up. If you are staying above it, it still looks okay. All right, so if we stay above this $37 trailing support, it still looks okay, but it seems like it's not even going to 37 support. Like 38 has already came out as a horizontal support level. All right, so this is UOB right now. The short-term trend is up. The longer-term trend has been up since 1-2 years back. All right, we are still holding above the 38 horizontal psychological support, even above the trailing support line. So not too bad. One of the stocks that you can put in your watch list, I think, is poised for more upside, especially if you can break the $39 psychological resistance level. So there we have it, guys. I hope you have a better idea on the three Singapore banks: DBS, OCBC, and UOB. All right, as I say, you want to find a bit more on the entire one good trend strategy. How do we actually pick stocks like this, or even other stocks, right? How do we filter out the top 1% of stocks and know exactly when to buy and sell them based on my one good trend, the one GT Pro indicator? Attend one of those free webinars. The link is right below the video. Click on it, register for it, and I look forward to share you more in this webinar about the entire frame. All right, Joey here. Click on the link below, register. I'll see you real soon. Thank you so much for watching. Click the like and the subscribe button as well if you've not yet followed the channel. All right, and that's where I look forward to add more value to you in other videos. Take care.